so many media controversies swirling around the president, we're joined now by Hogan Gidley, Deputy Press Secretary at the White House. Welcome.
Great to be here.
So this lengthy New York Times story says the FBI had at least one informant in the Trump campaign. Rudy Giuliani has been touting this. He's been around a bit, as you may have noticed. So the White House is perfectly willing to cite the failing New York Times when it has some information that benefits the administration?
Look, the New York Times obviously is a failing publication, as we all know, but it's for reasons just like this. I mean, they can't get out of their own way. The coverage on this president has been completely negative. We're entering now into the second year of this investigation. We have given over millions of pieces of paper, countless hours from our own folks in the administration, from the campaign, for conversations with the investigation. We have no collusion, no corruption, no obstruction. None of those things exist, and yet it still leads a lot of newscasts in
On
this
that
country.
point, the president just the other day called the Mueller probe illegal and disgusting. He's had a lot to say about it. Journalists say it's news. Do you believe the media in general, not just the New York Times, are overly fixated on these investigations?
Oh, without question. Think about last week, what we've had in the last couple of weeks, actually. We had our Secretary of State go to a foreign country and take 3 people, our citizens who were being detained, bring them back to this country. We got out of an Iran deal that we now know did not prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, but actually paved the way for them to get one.
Well, both of those
All
stories
of those
were covered,
things,
Hogan.
they were covered, but not nearly the way in which these salacious things are covered. If given the choice, the media has policy or palace intrigue, they take palace intrigue 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I did note that the day of the freeing of the prisoners in North Korea, the MSNBC and CNN primetime was heavily the Russia investigation again.
In the time it takes to say the word returnees back to American soil, they were back on Russia.
Does the White House have a position on whether the name of this FBI informant, which the New York Times and Washington Post are withholding, which others have not, should be made public?
Look, I can't get into any of this investigation stuff, obviously. I refer you to outside counsel for those types of things. But I just can say, again, this has been 2 years now, and we've got nothing to show for it. We've wasted taxpayer dollars, we've wasted time. And in the face of all this, the president has still had record-setting accomplishments and record-setting time. It's incredible what he's been able to do.
Well, he often puts these things out on Twitter that we then talk about, and let's put one up right now. The so-called leaks coming out of the White House are a massive over-exaggeration put out by the fake news media in order to make us look as bad as possible. With that being said, the president adds, leakers are traitors and cowards, and we will find out who they are. So he has every right to be upset about leaks that damage him and the administration, but he's often said in the past the media make up some of these anonymous sources. Does he now accept that some of these leakers are real?
Well, what the president's trying to articulate here, and he did so beautifully, in fact, is that these people are selfish. They are cowardly when they do leak information. He knows there are leaks, absolutely. But so much of these leaks are made up. I get calls all the time from reporters who try to double source things that are completely false, that I'm in the meeting. And I said, it didn't happen that way. And they said, we're going to run the story anyway. And I say, but I'm on the record. I'll tell you on the record. They said, but we have sources that say that are close to the meeting, not even in the meeting, close to the meeting with knowledge of, comma. Right. And they still run the story. It's egregious what they're doing. But think about how many things haven't leaked in the past couple of days, too. The First Lady's surgery, the president was mocked and derided because we couldn't find our Secretary of State when, in actuality, he was in North Korea. We knew where he was. Yeah, the New York Times said we didn't know where he was. We knew exactly where he was. They mocked us for it. He was bringing people that are citizens of this country back to this country.
But is it difficult for you to, and by the way, I try to check everything, and sometimes I've been told something happens in a meeting and someone who was there says no, and I don't run with it. But isn't it difficult for you to go to work knowing that there are among you people who, for whatever reason, will whisper stuff to reporters that hurts the White House, maybe about you?
Look, that kind of stuff happens in various businesses and work environments all over the country. I've been in media now for about 20 years. That's part of the job. But predominantly, we have an amazing team that works in tandem to get things accomplished for this president, to tout all the accomplishments he's been able to do in such a short amount of time. But inevitably, you'll have some people who are selfish, who want to be self-aggrandizing and will go out to the press and try and make a name for themselves, and that's a shame.
When he says traitors and cowards, obviously I'm going to ask you about it. Last question. I spoke earlier on the program about how some news organizations and some commentators said the president was referring to all illegal immigrants in that meeting on sanctuary cities. When he talked about animals, he was responding to a question about MS-13 gang members. Do you believe that was sloppiness or intentional on part of these organizations? Well,
you know, they never mess up in favor of the president. If you notice, every misreported fact is always bad to the president. It never helps us out. This is a gang whose motto is rape, control, and kill. And for whatever reason, Democrats have decided to come to the defense of this gang, and they're all too quick to publish stories in the media as well that somehow this president was talking about all immigrants, which
I don't
was
think the president's defending MS-13, but I do think...
Democrats have multiple occasions. Chuck Schumer just did.
But I do think that the president's words were very clear in context.
Very clear, very clear.
And that was unfortunate and gives you another reason to beat up on the president. Hogan Gidley, great to see you. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for the time.